Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Peter Zender from Golasso Learning Solutions, and a warm welcome to the Genuine Learning blog. Today's entry is a big FYI to the EBP, Employee Benefit Plan audit squads out there, specifically if you are a staff, a senior, or any team member that has been lucky enough to be assigned the task of gathering audit support from third-party administrators or record keepers. Now, as a former EBP audit practitioner myself, believe me, I know that it is the dream when the client gives you direct access to a service organization portal where you can pull down support and reports at your leisure. But in July of 2024, the AICPA's Employee Benefit Plan Audit Quality Center Executive Committee, say that 5 times really fast, released a letter noting how it is becoming more and more likely that these service organizations are requiring auditors to sign access agreements. Now, these agreements relate to things like non-disclosure, confidentiality, data protection, all of which on the surface may appear to be just standard practice in today's litigiously locked-in society. But if we're not careful, certain language in these agreements can prove problematic for auditors. Now, the EBPAQC's, that is so much easier to say, letter provided examples of common language used in these service organization access agreements that could lead to 2 major issues, 2 items that they're calling out here. The first of which is acceptance of increased risk by the auditor. So these terms could increase our risk. And now, personally, I'm a fan of identifying risk for my client and not taking more risk on myself. So this is probably something we don't want to do. And the second major issue, the second major item that they identified, is that agreeing to some of these terms could be in direct contradiction of auditing standards and required professional conduct for auditors. Another big no-no, something that we want to stay away from. Now, to give you a sense of what some of this risky contract language looks like, and to start reprogramming our mindset from "it's fine print" to "is it fine print?" Let's play a little game here where I'm going to provide a few examples of contract language from a service organization access agreement, and you will have 10 seconds to pick which one of the following 3 options would be correct. Our option number 1 is "it's fine." As auditors, we would be fine to sign to those terms. The second option, "why risk it?" These are items where agreeing to these terms would lead to more audit engagement risk. Again, something that we probably do not want to do. And then our option number 3, conduct clash. This is where agreeing to these terms would directly conflict with our professional standards. All right, are you ready to take on the challenge? Let's go. All right, our first excerpt here. "The user shall not copy, distribute, transmit, display, perform, reproduce, publish, license, alter, or otherwise exploit the information," I'm assuming from the portal. All right, here you go. Let's make your choice. Pick which option this would fall under. You can reread this if necessary. Frank, let's get 10 seconds on the clock. If you chose conduct clash, congratulations! You are correct. As auditors, we're required to document, and I quote, "the identifying characteristics of the specific items or matters tested. If those characteristics or specific items are from an accessed service organization portal, but we can't copy, display, or reproduce the information, it's a little hard for us to meet our documentation standards, and therefore a professional conduct clash would be the right answer." Okay, let's move on to our example number 2 here. Give it another shot. Our second excerpt here, "user shall ensure that each user agent will only access the third-party administrator TPA portal using a login ID and password unique to the user agent." All right, what do you think? Shout out the answer once you think you know it. Annoy that person sitting next to you. 10 seconds, here we go. If you chose "it's fine," then you are doing just fine. Usually we are going to be fine to have a unique login ID, a password that would not cause concern, as long as there are no limitations to accessing information necessary to the audit. We're fine complying with data security measures that, again, don't limit that access. All right, let's move to our last example here. Last example, last excerpt. Service organization reserves the right at its sole discretion to modify, amend, or update the terms and conditions of this agreement at any time without prior notice to the user. Now here's your conundrum. Did I save one why risk it, since that's the last option we haven't used, or am I one of those evil facilitators who likes to throw in curveballs and throw you off the scent? You've got 10 seconds to decide. Here you go. It was why risk it. We saved that last option for this final question. Given we as auditors may review these agreements only once per year, these access agreements only once per year, it'd be difficult for us to track changes and make sure that there were no new terms that got added that would pose a risk to our role as auditors. And so why risk it? Why would we agree to terms that might add more risk to our engagement? All right, hopefully you had a little fun trying to guess those three, but those were just a few examples. There are several others that the EBPAQC letter calls out. The first of which, under the conflicts with auditing professional standards bucket, is destroy all data, documents, materials, or information within 30 days. Now, our documentation must be retained for 5 years after the report release date under AICPA standards, or 7 years after the completion of audit documentation under the PCAOB. So destroying or removing information obtained from the portal prior to those timelines would conflict with these professional retention requirements. The second item here, promptly notify service organization of any errors, inaccuracies, omissions, or other discrepancies. I mean, that honestly, notifying the service organization sounds like a management responsibility to me, and would likely clash with the independence requirements of the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct. Not something that we really want to take on. A few others here now under the acceptance of increased risk to the auditor bucket. The user agrees to indemnify, defend, and hold harmless the service organization. Because auditor access is often solely at the request of the plan sponsor, it'd be far more appropriate for the plan sponsor to take on these indemnification terms rather than us as auditors taking on that obligation. Just makes more sense. And then the last one there down at the bottom, monitoring, tracking, and recording without prior notice to the user. Monitoring and tracking, that just sounds invasive, not something that I want to sign up for as an auditor. All right, I've thrown a bunch of information at you here, thrown a bunch of contract examples. Now the question is, what should you do as an auditor with this information? Well, before you sign a contract, before you click accept related to those user access terms, please check for the language that we discussed or send it to your legal team if you have one to take a look. And if the agreement contains concerning language, remember that it's management's responsibility to get us unfettered access to information and audit evidence. So we'll need to work with our client to overcome this obstacle, this issue, if it arises. And we've got a few options on different action items that you can take. The first action item here is you could request the service organization modify standard provisions in access agreements. That way we're not taking on more engagement risk or conduct clashing with our professional standards. If they're not willing to do that, the next kind of action item or the next option is we could seek alternatives to get the audit evidence directly from the service organization. Maybe instead of getting access to the portal, we use secured email with that TPA, or we use an information exchange platform like Audit Dashboard or SureLink. If we can't agree to either of these alternatives, at that point, again, we're going to need to go back and work with our client, and they're going to have to be responsible to get us the evidence and the data necessary for our audit. I know this can be, it's an annoying answer to be like push it off on the client. It can annoy the client, it can upset the client, but it is their responsibility. I'm actually pretty hopeful that most of the time, if you raise and explain these issues at hand as to signing these service organization access agreements, the service organization is probably going to play ball and be willing to compromise and agree to one of the top two alternatives here on the slide. All right, that is going to wrap up this blog entry. I hope that this has kind of given you some warning bells. Anytime you go to click into a service organization portal or sign a service organization access agreement, remember to be on the lookout for contract language that might increase our risk as auditors or clash with our professional standards. The last thing I want to mention, I know that October 15th deadline danger zone is upcoming for our EBP practitioners out there. I want to wish you guys good luck. I hope that everything goes smoothly, and please book some vacation, take some vacation after that October 15th deadline. You deserve it. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you guys learned something. Appreciate you. Happy auditing.